Hello everybody, how are you going? And welcome to TikTok showcasing the good, the bad and the ugly of what Canadian foods have on offer.
Things you will only find in Canada.
Recognizing everything there.
Smarties. These are very popular Canadian candies. When I first moved, everyone asked me to try them. They turned out to be delicious.
Yeah.
Right if you like it.
I mean, of course, but I also don't believe that they're Canadian. Surely they're going to be, I would have presumed British, if anything. I can only presume they would have been a part of Cadbury, maybe Nestle. I mean, they did look a little bit bigger than I remember. I mean, Smarties should be quite small, and unless he has some very, very tiny fingers, I guess, around a hand, they look way bigger than what I remember. And I guess that does make sense, as each country is going to have its own variation because of their own factories. Even the North American ingredients are probably going to be different from the UK and Australia. So even if they are doing it to cater to certain countries' taste bud preferences, or for some reason the size or certain legislation, whatever it may be, they are going to be probably slightly different. But that doesn't mean that Smarties on their own do not exist. They may not have the NHL logo on them, and they may not be that big and flat, but they definitely do exist. And some people might argue that they would taste better.
Aussie tries Canadian snacks. They'll be trying Swedish fish.
Oh,
They
Swedish
smell
fish.
like red frogs.
They
don't taste like red frogs. They taste like medicine. 3 out of 10.
3.
Plus, and let me know what Canadian snacks you want me to try.
Oh, she just wasted no time cutting to the chase there, and it just was honestly brutal, but I guess it makes sense with a 3 out of 10 product, which is so surprising, considering, like she said, they do look exactly like red frogs, and so how can they be differing so much? Is it, once again, a cultural thing? Is it a taste bud thing? Is it a what would it be, a trademark thing where you can't be copying too much? I mean, I do wonder, where are Swedish fish even made, or where do they originate from? Because with a name like Swedish fish, you would think that they would be originating in Sweden, but I can only presume that, like French fries, they do not.
Canadian Chinese food has regional differences. We even have multiple unique regional variations on egg rolls. Here's how they do it in Ottawa, for instance. But the sub-variant of Canadian Chinese food that is Halifax Chinese food does egg rolls a bit differently. They're essentially a meat paste egg roll. Trimmings from different meats, pork, cabbage, chicken, nobody's quite sure, are placed in a food processor and are processed into a paste before being wrapped and deep fried.
What?
Canadian Chinese food
What?
is not
I'm
the
just
same.
trying to be aware of what is even going on in this entire thing, but he's talking about egg rolls, which I guess I have heard of, but I've never really heard about people actually having them, or I more so in the fact I've never heard about anyone in Australia ever having them, which I guess then is also the opposite of what I've heard, that North America, or maybe just Canada, or maybe it was USA, but one of them didn't have prawn crackers, which is just like the Chinese food icon of Australia. Like, you just get given them and everybody loves them, it seems. So then for him to be saying that these are so prolific everywhere and even have cultural differences from province to province, meanwhile I don't believe I've ever had one, it takes me a second to then just get my grasp on what is going on here. But I also just want to be trying to figure out what he was saying in terms of, he said different meats, but then he said cabbage.
Trimmings from different meats, pork, cabbage, chicken, nobody's quite sure, are
That's what I thought he said, and that's why it took me back a little bit, because he says trimmings from different meats. Pork? Cool. Cabbage? Huh? And then chicken. Like, it's just a weird full circle where I'm not too sure if he knows the full difference between meat and food. Cabbage, in my books, unless there's some strange Halifax cabbage, I've never heard of a cabbage being a meat. So maybe I should just completely disregard what he's saying and instead just look at the images, because in the background it looks like there's a whole host of different vegetables, maybe some corn in there, some carrot, some cabbage, as he says. So it's clearly not vegetarian if it has cabbage in it. That one looks like a sausage roll though. And so I don't really know how that it's different, or what is it? Is it just meat in there? And then how and where does the egg come into it? Meanwhile, at the end, he's saying that it's a paste. So they really are quite different, and at least that does offer some variety. But man, am I just completely out of the loop.
Okay, Natalie, say it with me. We
Jesus.
don't need it. We don't need it.
I want to get it.
Okay.
Fair enough, but my heart says no. Your brain may say yes, and all the dopamine that you get from it just goes, oh, hallelujah, but your heart goes, oh, God, please save me from that heart attack in a styrofoam container. I was going to say in a jar, but it's clearly not in a jar. Just the chips, the cheese curds, and then that much gravy. It makes sense that people love it, especially in the kind of time that people generally have it, being in the AM, so to say, but man, does it just look so bad for you. I mean, at least this one does look like it's the generic one, so you're not adding in even extra toppings and other things that are probably going to just give you even more of a heart attack. But then again, maybe you do actually want some other things to be coming into your diet besides just pure carbs and fats. It truly is amazing. I guess that it makes sense that it tastes good, but it's amazing that it's had the longevity because it just doesn't look appetizing. You know, people like appetizing things, but I guess if the taste is that good, it doesn't matter what it looks like.
Potato into the cutter. Rinse our potato twice in water. Drying process. Stab it down with a piece of towel just to get it nice and dry. No, here, heat for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, stick it in a chopstick. Once you see beautiful bubbles bubbling up by the chopstick, we're ready to fry. Blanch our fries for 8 minutes. 8 minutes in, take it out and let it dry. Gravy time, 2 clumps of butter, 5 tablespoons, an hour. Once you got a nice dark chocolate brown, 2 cups, beef stock going in. Duck fat.
No, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Oh, this is just the gravy ingredients. He put in the butter, 2 cups of beef stock. Is that what that was? It must be. Jeez. And then 2 tablespoons of duck fat. It just keeps going. That's a lot of things in the gravy. But to be fair, look at the amount of gravy that he's making.
Onion powder, garlic powder, basil, dry thyme. Fries back into the pool for 8 to 10 minutes. Salt these fries. Jesus. Nothing beats fresh fries, eh? Cheese curds right on top. Hot gravy on
God.
top. Order
Oh
69?
God.
Your Canadian poutine is up, eh? If you haven't had a real
Jesus.
poutine ever before, come to my house.
Oh, I mean, look, fair play to him if he just is able to whip it up like that and with knowing all the ingredients that goes into it, let alone the tips and the tricks like putting a chopstick in the oil to know when it's ready to go. Then, I mean, to be fair though, he did put the chopstick in the oil and it's kind of just swirling around. But 2 seconds later, you could see that when he puts the chips in, it's very, very bubbly and boiling all of a sudden. So I don't exactly know if you can say that it was ready before and then say that it's ready now when the oil is bubbling. Regardless though, he is definitely not just skimped on anything in terms of making it look correct, making it look like the last one that we saw, the heart attack on a plate. And so now I just want to know, does anyone kind of rated anything? No one's really saying it's good or bad, which must mean that it's actually a fairly traditional and good recipe, because if it was bad, people would be able to see it and they would rip into it, making sure people know, saying, that's not poutine, this is poutine.
Trying Raising Cane's for the first time. I've been
What
so
is
keen
this?
to try this since we don't have it in
What is
Australia.
that?
I got the 3-finger combo. Can you guess how much this cup of sauce was? It's $6. I kind of thought it would be
What?
more. First up, let's try the Texas toast. It was wonderfully grilled and was so soft, buttery, and slightly sweet. And oh my gosh, the sauce was so good. I think it's
am
a
I
mix of
looking
mayo
at
and
here?
tomato sauce. It's creamy and tangy with an incredible peppery kick to it. The chicken tenders had a slight crunch, which I liked, and was
God.
decently juicy. It's breast meat. It pairs so well with the sauce. And for the drink, I got an Arnold Palmer, which is half lemonade and half sweet tea. It's really refreshing and light. I liked it. And finally, for the fries, they were quite a letdown for me. It was soft and lacked seasoning. I definitely prefer my fries crispier. But let's be real, the sauce
What
makes
is that
everything
sauce?
taste a lot better. I'd come back for the sauce alone.
Well, first of all, I kind of had to process what I was looking at there because I was so taken away by the food, but I can only presume, considering it was given in USD and I've never heard about it, and then there was the Texas sauce, and there was a few other contextual clues. I can only presume that this isn't Canadian. It must be in the USA. But why does anyone need a cup of sauce? Like a full... It's like a liter. I would say not even a large cup. Like that's an American, probably actually a medium, but like a very, very large cup of sauce that nobody needs. What are you possibly doing with that much sauce for, what did you say, a 3-finger menu, something like that? Yeah, like that's all you're getting in terms of, that's all you need. So you don't need more volume of sauce than the actual rest of the meal. What are you possibly going to do with it all? Do you just bring it back and then take it home and then bring it back and then you just keep getting this over and over again? Also, why is it $6? Like, surely just give yourself a little bit and then have it as part of the meal. I'm so taken aback by the fact that you can just get $6 of straight sauce. Then, whatever this thing in the middle was, it was like a Texas toast. There it is. What possibly is that? She said it was a whole host of things, and yes, this is meant to be Canadian foods, but I just need to know what Canadians think about this, because this is just what the entire world thinks is American food, and to some extent with all the fast food restaurants it kind of feels like it is, and all the videos that we see. But still, why does anyone need Raising Cane's to be providing them a liter of sauce? That's like That's like what the restaurant should be buying, not what the restaurant should be selling. Things in Canada that would send Europeans into coma. Separate room for what? Second big fridge. That's a freezer? That's for 4 people? Okay, sure, but that's a freezer. That's a very big upright freezer. I don't think I've ever seen a freezer like that. If anyone's going to be having a big long-term freezer, it's going to be, what would you call it, a chest freezer, which is like that, but lying down. It's long ways, not up ways instead. But then to be pairing that with a second big fridge, and for this to be normal, and what do they say, a separate room for food savings. Now, they're showing a pantry, but I'm wondering, is food savings a pantry or is food savings leftovers? Because when I first read that, having a separate room for food savings, I was thinking that they were talking about leftovers. And I was going, how many leftovers do you possibly, 1, need, and 2, keep? And for how long can you possibly be leaving them in a room? I mean, I guess if you're living up north in Canada, it's just going to be a frozen room. You might just make an igloo outside and make it your food savings room, just permanently preserved. But I can only presume that this is separate room for food savings is talking about the pantry and the second fridge and the big freezer. Is that right? If it is, it makes sense in terms of how it would be sending Europeans into a coma, because a lot of European dwellings don't have the room to be having a whole separate room for all these extra double fridges and freezers and pantries and whatnot. You would just be having both, they have their washing machines and everything in the kitchen because they don't have the room, let alone having an entire separate room like this. To be fair though, I can only presume that a lot of people in Canada would be using their basements for such a thing, and the UK doesn't not have basements, so maybe it's just a cultural thing. But then why is it so different? Why do people apparently have so much more food in Canada? Why do they need to be holding and hoarding it all compared to just buying it more regularly? Perhaps? Is that the thing?
Y'all know I love going to McDonald's outside the States, so here I am in Canada. Y'all know I'm going to try the poutine as well as this new spicier Sichuan McChicken. Here's what the new spicier Sichuan McChicken looks like. Pretty standard. And here is the poutine. McDonald's Canada. Here we go. The poutine and the cheese curds, oh my gosh, it was just going and going and going. But the taste of the poutine, well, the cheese curds were nice and melted, but the gravy could have been stronger in flavor. Let's talk about the spicier Sichuan McChicken. Like the curry McChicken in Switzerland, why isn't this available in the States?
That's just a bit of a flex right at the end there. Like the one in Switzerland, why isn't this available in the States? He's clearly getting around just doing an entire tour. But like I said, I always do forget that McDonald's in Canada has poutine on the menu. And of course you would. Why would you not be capitalizing on that market? But just the way that they can then just make it for the masses, then if people just do like the McDonald's chips, then they can be mixing it in like nobody else can. So they really have cornered a market. And the fact that they can be open later and longer than anyone, it does all make sense. But I'm sure it also annoys a bundle of people as well, just going, it's not the same. Like, compared to the one where the guy made it at home, it's not going to be anything like that. With all the different flavors and the gravy and the beef stock and all of that, it's never going to be the same as having it from a traditional place, or even just not having it from a fast food restaurant. Someone might be able to make it really quickly, but not having it from a chain fast food restaurant, it's just not going to hit home as much. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not going to hit you hard as much, which is weird to think that McDonald's might be the healthier option. I don't even know. Maybe they have to pass more food standard regulations to not kill people as much. And whatever it may be, it just doesn't look as crazy as some of the other ones that we have seen.
This is my strategy for eating at the Mandarin Chinese buffet to get your money's worth.
Mandarin?
With a bunch of sushi first.
Sushi first?
It's probably the best bang for your buck. All you can eat sushi and everything else. So I used to go for the salad bar first. Rookie mistake. Step 2, get everything. As much as you can on the next plate. Eat as fast as you can as well, so you can get more in. Step 3, get more of what you haven't tried as much as you can. Okay, now that you're done that, step 4 would be go back and get everything, all the best of plate. Okay, how much can this guy eat? If you have room for dessert, you can do that, but it's not important at all. Not important. Easy. That's not why you come to Mandarin. Eat dessert. Ooh, banana fudge ice cream.
And now that you've gotten your money's worth at the Mandarin, the final step is to make your way to the nearest hospital for a full recovery.
Yes, I'm glad that he included that step because it clearly is needed. To be having that much of all you can eat, I've don't know if I've ever been to an all-you-can-eat place because I feel as though they just don't really exist in Australia. I feel like things would just be too expensive. Maybe they'd be like $100 compared to, I don't know, probably not $100 to go to Mandarin. But firstly, let me just wind it back and say that somehow I've never heard of this chain restaurant, I can only presume being Mandarin Chinese Buffet. Then for him to be at least laying out the entire thing and say that starting with sushi feels like it could very quickly become a double-edged sword. Yes, you're getting a bit of bang for your buck in terms of the ingredients, maybe if you're getting the chicken or the salmon or whatever it may be, but you're also consuming a lot of rice, and so bang for your buck, I don't know if you really could argue that compared to some of the other things that I saw there, like this entire plate of who knows what. There seems to be a bread or a chicken, all the different meats and beans and everything, let alone what he goes then for the third plate of food. Then he went back for another plate of food. There was so much food that he has consumed here, and maybe that's for a good thing that Australia doesn't have all-you-can-eat buffets, on the regular at least, because it just seems dangerous. As much as people are going to be trying to maximize their food intake for their price, I don't know, that just sounds like a very easy trap to fall into if you are eating 4 plates of food. I mean, I guess you could do it, what, 21 times a week if you wanted to.
Food in Canada that I don't like.
Oh no.
The first one, put in the cans. Didn't try it a lot. Last time I tried some bufferoni. It was so bad. And I'm always wondering, does Canadian really eat it? Does anyone like it? Second one, Canadian herring. I tried only once and it was so bad. I don't like it.
Fair enough.
Everyone should try Ukrainian ones. The last one, pickles. I still can find delicious Canadian pickles. They're all so strange and so bad. Some garlic or sweet. Write me if you like it.
This is the kind of stuff that I love to see, just the very nuanced thing, just like picking apart pickles and picking apart canned food and herring, all the things that no one would ever really be thinking of if you're just going there for a week. And I was going to be comparing the herring compared to Ukrainian herring, and I was wondering where he was going to be from. And I can only presume that's where he's from. It's quite a long name that matches up. But it was great that he had already tried another country's version of these same things. So we did have the context. It's not like going overseas and going, oh, well, I've never tried canned food before or herring or anything like that. So I don't know what it's meant to taste like. And whether I like it or not is kind of irrelevant. It's just going, oh, I don't like Canada's one, not I don't like the certain food. As in my case, if I was to do the same thing he did and try the Canadian herring, I don't think I've ever had it before, and so I wouldn't have any context, and it kind of, I can only presume, would be like a sardine? But I don't know, I have no idea what it's meant to be like, so whether I like it or not, like I said, is completely irrelevant. But then for him to also mention that it was kind of difficult to find as normal pickles because Canada seemingly has, what would you call it, just a whole bundle of flavors of pickles. Like this one is with garlic, but then he also mentioned heaps of other ones. So why is it so different? Why does every single country just love to put its own little spin on it in a good way? But it's also just amazing, like, where does it divert in history? Did someone just try it and then they just go along with it and then it suddenly becomes a brand? I can understand if someone is doing someone at home, you know, sprinkling salt on something that definitely shouldn't have salt in it for anyone that's a little bit sane. But then, like I just said, how does it possibly go from someone's basement creation to being bought and sold in a jar? Whereas really quickly, any country would be weeding out anything that they don't like. It clearly is not going to be being sold if it's not going to be being bought. And so every country can have their own nuanced thing. But why? Why is it all so different?